Hey guys, welcome back to Games of War. Today's episode is all about a genre of games that I don't really talk about enough on the channel. Definitely don't give it enough love. Everyone knows I love a good RPG, visual novel, action adventure, more niche, under the radar style games, but I also love me some racing games. Whether it's on-foot racing, driving cars, motorcycles, aircraft, watercraft, you name it. If it's an arcade racer, I absolutely am willing to give it a chance. I do like the Gran Turismo and Forza simulation style racing games. I think they're a lot of fun and they definitely have their audience, but myself personally, I prefer more arcade racing, and truth be told, I kind of veer towards the more oddball style of racing games that are not really classified by a certain strictly racing genre. And I'll get into it more what I mean. I've got a stack of games here that I've picked out ranging across all systems, games that are more odd in nature when it comes to racing. I think there's a lot of fun to be had in each of these games. We're going to go back from the beginning, start with some earlier titles, and work our way through. Hope you guys enjoy, and thank you for watching. Hey guys, before we get started, I just want to give such a huge shout out and thank you to my loyal Patreons. I can't thank you guys enough. I've been so shit in terms of consistency, but you guys have stuck with me, and you've never turned your backs on me. And thanks to you, if you've noticed the past couple videos and this video, I've had to do still screenshots instead of gameplay footage. My capture equipment's taking a shit on me, but thanks to you loyal supporters that have stuck with me, I'm going to be using the money from Patreon to buy new capture equipment. So the next couple of videos, you're going to see gameplay back in the videos. I'm sorry for the delay. I just can't thank you guys enough for sticking with me, and thanks to you, the channel will be back with capture equipment. In the next few videos, you'll see gameplay back in instead of these screenshots that I hate doing. So thank you guys so much for being so loyal, and I can't thank you enough. Please enjoy the video. So starting out, some of my fondest memories of racing in the early days was on the Road Rash games for the Sega Genesis. I think the second one's definitely my favorite. Badass racing games, man. The controls were great. The combat was really cool. Upgrading, getting different bikes. The music was kick-ass in the Genesis versions. The first two games had really good visuals. They had a real nice, clean look to them. The third one was released at the height of like the Mortal Kombat craze, where everything had to be digitized and everything had that digital look to it. So they went with a completely different look for the third one, sporting that kind of realistic digital realism. But for me, the second one is the height, pinnacle of the series. But I'm here to talk about a game that's definitely more oddball than the Road Rash games, because they were definitely racing games, but they had a lot of combat in there. But s.c.a.r.s is a racing game. I'm not sure that I'd even call it a racing game, but it runs on the Road Rash engine, and you're kind of a kid on rollerblades. And you start off, you can definitely tell it runs on the Road Rash engine because it's got a very similar look. The music sounds very similar as well. But you start off rollerblading, and these cars are going to be flying by, and you use the little camera, the rearview mirror, and as the cars fly by, you kind of duck down low and grab onto the back of the car, and you kind of whip through the streets, and as you hold onto the back of the car, you kind of grab to the side and propel yourself and whip yourself forward and kind of rollerblade faster and go from car to car, speeding through the city streets. And there's also other people that are there. You're going to do, kicking them and punching them and shit, trying to take them out. Get yourself first in the race. You can also do these awesome tricks going off ramps and shit. So definitely a different kind of racing game. I'd love to see like a modern update to s.c.a.r.s. A great, I don't know if I'd call it racing game, but it's a lot of fun. Driving through the levels, grabbing onto the back of the cars, vaulting yourself through at traffic at high speeds, doing cool jumps, fending off your enemies as you're racing. Definitely a great game from the Road Rash team, and I really wish there was a sequel. We got enough Road Rash games, so why couldn't we get a s.c.a.r.s 2? But a fantastic, more oddball kind of racer. So starting things off on the PlayStation, the series that really kind of got me into looking off the beaten path when it comes to racers, looking for something a little different, I played the Jet Moto games, and I was instantly hooked. Now this game is kind of odd in the fact that when I first saw it, I was like, man, are these jet skis? Are they hovercrafts? Are they kind of like a Wipeout type game? The truth is, it's neither really any of those. They're kind of like sit-down jet skis, but they do hover. And this game has awesome controls. The first one really blew me away with the physics and the speed at which you race. And going around the corners, you have like a grappling hook that kind of latches on. You swing around the corners. So Jet Moto is a really well-known series, so I don't want to get too much into this one. It's a fantastic series. Check them out on the original PlayStation. This is what got me into the more kind of oddball type of racer, where it wasn't really on cars or it wasn't really like a futuristic hovercraft game. Something a little different, and that's what really opened my eyes to different kinds of racers that were out there. So one series that's definitely worth mentioning was Roll Cage. These are amazing games, amazing racing games on the PS1. Visuals are top-notch, amazing techno soundtracks pumping in the background. And the hook of this game is that you're in these cars, and they can kind of grip onto all ceilings, all surfaces. So you can be racing through the tracks, and the tracks are set up to take advantage of that. So you can be racing through a tunnel, you can kind of race on the ground and then shift over to the side of the wall, that eventually upside down. The tracks have awesome uses of that. You can be turned upside down, flipped around everywhere in tunnels. It gets kind of confusing, a little disorienting, but the tracks are pretty well done to take advantage of that mechanic, and they all are dizzying speeds, man. It gets you really into the action, pumped up, frame rate's really smooth, really graphically impressive looking games in the PlayStation. I absolutely love the car design. They're designed in the fact that the wheels are pretty big, so when they flip over you can continue racing. It can lead to a little bit of problems with disorientation, but for the most part it handles it pretty well. Being flipped upside down, you can kind of keep racing along, and I really love the track design, the futuristic theme, great stuff, tons of tracks. The second game is more of the same as the first, with some new tracks, small improvements overall, but this game definitely was great in the first one. The second one was more of the same. A fantastic kind of futuristic theme to it. The cars are great. Controls are great. Everything about Roll Cage is fantastic. And I was really surprised to see the series kind of make a return. I believe there's a Kickstarter. I'm not sure if it got funded or if it didn't get funded, but there was a continuation of the series, and it was called Grip. And once more of the same. The futuristic cars are back, clean to all surfaces, great visuals here. Definitely the best version is the PS4 or Xbox One version. Looks great in 4K, and they just recently released an expansion to this where it adds like anti-grav packs, so there's kind of like hover cars and different futuristic vehicles that have been added to the roster, so kind of makes it a whole different game. And it was a standalone release to commemorate the DLC, so it's all in one package. I think it's called Airblades and something else expansion, but really cool content added onto this game. If you like the Roll Cage games, definitely check out Grip. A fantastic series in the PlayStation, and one that's definitely worth going back to. Circuit Breakers is a fantastic game in the mold of the Micro Machine style racing game. In my opinion though, bold statement I'm about to make, but definitely true in my case, Circuit Breakers is better than any Micro Machines game ever made. I think that's true for myself personally. I got more enjoyment out of this than any Micro Machines game. Difference being in this, the camera is always behind the vehicle, which means the control is always relative to the direction you're facing, which for me is a game changer. Absolutely love the tracks. The detail is amazing. Cornering is great. Multi-leveled tracks, jungles, deserts, awesome design. The control is spot on. A great multiplayer, 4-player. I absolutely love the different cars, very small, like little Micro Machine style cars. There's boats. The controls are fantastic. A ton of fun to play. Very competitive. I enjoyed Circuit Breakers through and through. It's really a cool kind of quirky racing game with great controls. This game actually got really good reviews back in the day from most publications, and it didn't sell that well, which is sad, but I don't get it, man. A fantastic game. It's held up throughout the years. A great alternative to Micro Machines. If you're into that kind of game, definitely check out Circuit Breakers. Definitely needs more love. Next up, we have s.c.a.r.s. We have Super Computer Animal Racing Simulation. That's right. That's what s.c.a.r.s stands for, and that is brilliant. I always enjoyed the story and backdrop setting for this game. The year is 3000 AD, and the world is no longer controlled by humans. 9 supercomputers have taken over control of the Earth, and they have far surpassed their human creators. After having acquired many of the characteristics of their human counterparts, these supercomputers now have the ability to feel emotions such as happiness, anger, resentment, and even boredom. And it is boredom which led these supercomputers to take part in the most dangerous of human activities, and that is racing. Now, these computers' drive for victory has led them to create different driving vehicles based on the most fearsome of animals alive on Earth. Now, guys, I just want to stop you right there. After telling you this brilliant story, I want to tell you, sometime there was a team sometime in the late 90s that worked on this game, put their blood, sweat, and tears, maybe missed holidays with their families, late nights working, missing deadlines, coming home late, getting yelled at by their wives, to come up with the 9 supercomputers that kind of took over human emotions and built animal-like cars to race to amuse themselves. Let's let that sink in for a minute. I just love going back and playing these older games, man, and seeing all the different stories and different crazy shit that came out in the 90s, and it's good to go back and play this shit. So, getting started, you've got 5 cars available from the start with 4 more unlockable. The controls are really good in this game, actually. You're able to cruise around the levels. You've got a power slide button. You've got different abilities that are able to be leveled up. Speed, acceleration, grip, armor, and weapons. And they've all got different ones based on which car you choose, based on which different animal you choose. And I really like the racing action. The weapons are pretty cool. It's not going to blow your mind, but it's definitely something a little different. The vehicles are all pretty cool based on animals. I really enjoyed this story. It cracked me up. They were dead-ass serious. s.c.a.r.s is kind of like a almost like a kart racer, but the racing action is pretty solid. It's definitely something a little different. I enjoyed the track designs, the detail, the frame rate's pretty good. Controls are spot on. If you're looking for something definitely a little different, check out s.c.a.r.s. and just take a moment to get on Twitter, find some of the original guys that did this game, and send them a message and say, man, I appreciate what you've done, because s.c.a.r.s is a fantastic game. MotorTune Grand Prix is a really interesting game from the makers of Gran Turismo. So you're thinking kind of hyper-realistic, but out the window. All that's out the window. They're going for a more cartoony, Saturday morning-like approach, and it is very well done. The characters would be at home in any Saturday morning cartoon, like from the 80s or 90s. I absolutely love the way the characters and vehicles kind of bend around the corners and take shape as you're racing. A really cool little gimmick to add some personality to the characters, and the tracks are really well done. Nice bright visuals. Gran Turismo Studio Polyphony, I believe their name is. They know what they're doing, and they apply their craft to a great kind of light kart racer game. Tons of personality, a lot of great fun in the tracks and different characters. Definitely check out MotorTune. Next up, we've got Jet X2O, and I was really surprised to see this because I thought, man, is this another Jet Moto game? I hadn't really done much research on it. Come to find out that there was 2 more games that were planned to come out in the Jet Moto series. One was, I think, Jet Moto 2124. That was supposed to come out after the 3rd one. Unfortunately, Jet Moto 3 didn't sell well, so that was canned. This game came out, and they were supposed to have, I believe it was called Jet Moto Solar, and that was unfortunately canceled due to the poor sales of this. But what this game does, and does very well, is the tracks themselves. Now, racing itself is kind of standard fare. You're able to put together some nice tricks. It's got a nice trick system, and the more tricks you do, it fills up your boost, and you're able to kind of stay at top speed around these massive levels. And rather than focus on tracks that are like 4 or 5 laps and you just kind of see the same shit over and over again, really small, this game has huge, expansive levels, sometimes taking upwards of 5 minutes to finish the actual level. Just massive levels. The scenery is hardly repeated, so there's always something fresh around the corner for you to feast your eyes upon. Great level design, really creative, all kinds of like massive drops, some great wave physics. I was actually really blown away by the attention to detail and the massive tracks in this game. There's always something new to see, some great variety. Overall, really fun racing game, and I really wish that either Jet Moto 3 or this would have sold a little better so we could see some continuation of this series, because I think it's fantastic, and Jet X2O is a really nice racing game. So next up, we've got Kinetic Car, and I was really excited for this game. Santa Monica Studios is one of my favorites, and they do great work, and this is no exception. This is a really tricky racing game to kind of nail down. I was expecting something kind of like F-Zero, maybe Wipeout, but playing the game, you're actually not in a vehicle. There's no futuristic hovercrafts, but you've got a suit, and this suit is fused to your body. What makes this game so unique and fun, aside from just how badass the suits look, I mean, these are top-notch designs. You've got wheels on your hands and feet, which in essence kind of makes the drivers themselves the vehicles. Now, as you're racing, you're able to freely move your arms and legs independently, which kind of like opens up some really cool trick ideas and chaining things together. And I'll be the first to admit, this has got a pretty steep learning curve, man, but once you kind of master your feet in relation to your hands around the track and the insane sense of speed, it all becomes really second nature, and you really start to enjoy what Kinetica has to offer, man. Some insanely cool track designs kind of centered around this notion of independent suspension in terms of 4 different wheels, all independently controlled. It's really cool, a really unique idea that really works well. Once again, I can't stress how freaking cool these suits look. The tracks themselves can get kind of confusing because it's so easy to get turned around because you've got this independent controls for the different wheels, and you can get turned around real quick, and there's some straight up drops and straight up hills, and it can be a little disorienting at first, but you really got to just master the way the controls work. It's very fluid, great frame rate, and once you do, you kind of get used to it and how the game controls. You're really going to enjoy the freedom that's allowed from having these suits as opposed to like a vehicle. Something that hasn't really been done since, and I think they did a really good job. I would love to see a sequel and kind of further expand on the ideas of these suits, but overall what they've got here is really impressive, graphically impressive. Gameplay is rock solid. If you're looking for something outside of the norm from F-Zero, you like the futuristic shit, definitely check out this. The suits themselves are worth seeing alone. It's just an amazing racing game, and I come back to this today. I still haven't got it, quite mastered, but I still have fun playing it. So definitely check out Kinetica if you like the futuristic racers. Modified Air Combat Heroes, Mach on the PSP. This was a blind buy for myself in GameStop one day. I saw that shiny foil cover, looked at the back, and I was sold. That was like $5. And it's an airplane racing game, and it's actually really well done on the PSP. The production value is really remarkable. It looks amazing on the PSP, nice and bright, Color palette is great. The skies look great. The skylines look great. It's kind of a racing game slash dogfighter, with the emphasis being definitely on the racing action. You're able to upgrade, buy different planes, get different parts, upgrade your guns. So overall, there's a little bit of depth to it, but it's definitely a bare bones game. I think like 5 or 6 tracks, and then they reverse them for like 12. The dog fights are pretty much on the same levels, but the dog fighting is fun, I'll give you that. But the racing is definitely the star of the show, and you can't fly up too high. So instead, it more focuses on like weaving through the environments, and you can kind of swoop down low and ride over the water and swoop back up and avoid enemy fire. You can kind of roll out of the way like a barrel roll, and some cool weapons, lock-on missiles, shields. The tracks themselves are the highlight here. They look really good in the PSP. They're not super long, but they are really well done. They look great. They've got some really cool objects to fly in and out of, and I really enjoyed the overall controls and just the playability of Mach. It's a really cool airplane racing game on the PSP. It's dirt cheap, and I thought it was really well done. If you like racing games, airplanes, willing to give something new a shot, definitely check out Mach. I wasn't disappointed. Next up, we've got Scorcher on the Sega Saturn, and I remember this game vividly because back in the late 90s, I think it was 97, 98, I just broken up with a girlfriend, and I was sitting at home depressed at my dad's house playing a lot of this game, and the atmosphere in this game was so dark and depressing. And the storyline, I remember it says, oh, the year is 2021, which back then I thought, oh my God, that's forever into the future, man. It's going to be like flying cars and shit, man. But it turns out now that it is 2020, it's a year off, and I'm still driving a car to work. So go figure. But this game was made by Scavenger, and they were able to really work some magic on the Saturn. I think they did Power Slave as well, but they had a really good engine on the Saturn where everything was lightning smooth, great frame rates, visuals are very impressive, and this game is no exception. Scorcher is almost like a Super Monkey Ball. That's how the way it looks. I mean, you're in a wireframe kind of green grid sphere kind of surrounding your guy, and I believe it's like a sit-down vehicle that he's in, but it looks like you're racing a green grid sphere type thing, but definitely Monkey Ball kind of inspired. And you fly around these tracks. You're able to accelerate, jump, and then get turbo. And the controls are kind of based like on physics, man. You can really get whipping around this course and kind of bouncing around in this thing. So you've really got to use the triggers left and right through the sharp turns to really stay on track and control your speed. Now, although there's not many tracks, I think there's like 6 or 7 tracks in full. Everything's full 3D. The game says that, once again, it's the future and the world has kind of been polluted to the max. Humans have destroyed the earth and everything is war-torn, and due to pollution, it's fallen apart. Everything is decaying. And it definitely shines through in this game. It's very dark and depressing, but definitely a lot of fun. I'll never forget this game getting me through that depressing time. I remember looking at the environments and just thinking, oh God, this can't get any worse. But a really fun racing game. Definitely one of the highlights in the Saturn for me personally. I know there's a lot of great racing games like Daytona and Sega Rally. This is definitely outside of the box, and I really love it for that. A great racing game. Next up on the PlayStation 2, we've got Downhill Domination. And man, this is one of my favorites, easily on the PlayStation 2 in terms of racing games. Definitely one of a kind, truly. I can't think of too many like mountain bike racing games in existence. This might be the only one, but it is just badass through and through. A great sense of speed. And what struck me about this game initially was just the sheer size and scope of these mountains, man. That race starts and you are instantly like going straight downhill. These mountainsides are enormous. There's all kinds of really cool hidden spots to go through, different paths. Death-defying drops. There's a really cool stunt system in here. Mashing the X button to pedal and get going fast. It's just a thrill ride through and through. Enormous tracks, really impressive for the time. I couldn't believe the PlayStation 2 was pumping out gigantic mountainsides like this, man. One-of-a-kind racing. Kind of took me back to Road Rash in terms of like swinging clubs and shit and kicking people off their bikes. But overall, a fantastic game, one of a kind. I definitely got to play it to believe it. I absolutely love Downhill Domination. It holds up to this day as being like a premier downhill mountain bike game. I think the only one in existence. I could be wrong. I haven't seen any other things downhill mountain biking, but definitely an untapped frontier in terms of racing. Great setting. I absolutely loved the game through and through, and I would not be caught dead with my fat ass on a mountain bike going on any one of these hills, man. Any one of these mountains, no freaking way I'd kill myself because they are steep, sharp, and tons of fun. It's not expensive. Check out Downhill Domination. Freaky Flyers on the Xbox from Midway. What a great game this was. They were on fire back then, I swear to God, Midway, with the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox days. The Suffering series, s.c.a.r.s. Freaky Flyers is no exception. They just really spoke to me during that generation. Midway was on fire. Great creative games. Freaky Flyers could have been a Saturday morning cartoon with the cast of characters in this. It's that well done. Tons of different characters that really had such a great sense of humor. Everything was so well written. I was really surprised the amount of effort that they put into these characters and the backstories. And the campaign, you'd play different characters, and you'd have cutscenes as you go along. And these huge levels, you'd have different sub-goals and different missions to complete while you were racing. And if you completed them all, you'd unlock new characters and different crafts. And it was just so addictive because the characters were so well written. You really wanted to complete all the objectives and kind of unlock more and more. Levels themselves are freaking huge, visually stunning on the Xbox. I mean, these levels looked great. All different kinds of shortcuts and different routes to take. Kind of like a kart racer in the sky. Great controls, great weapons, power-ups. And like I said, the star of the show is definitely the characters. So much fun to play, great multiplayer modes. I've always been a sucker for like an airplane racing game, and Freaky Flyers fits the bill. A great cartoony aesthetic, great characters, controls were amazing. I just was so in love with Midway back in this time. They put out such great original creative games, and Freaky Flyers is no exception. Definitely kind of an oddball racing game, but so well done on the Xbox. I come back to this and play this constantly just to get more of the characters. They're that damn funny. What a great racing game on the Xbox. It's dirt cheap. Definitely check out Freaky Flyers. Going back to the early days of the Xbox, Circus Maximus was one I picked up pretty early on in the system's life, and it was a blind buy. Totally caught me off guard. It wasn't expensive. I mean, I got this game on sale. I remember getting it for like 20 bucks back in the day, and I was really happy when I got home and played it because it was so enjoyable. I'm such a huge fan of like the Gladiator time setting. I used it great to effect a racing game mixed with brutal combat. What I loved most about Circus Maximus was the control scheme. Very intuitive, using the left analog stick to kind of steer, take the reins of the horse, and steer your character around the different environments. The right stick to aim in any different direction and attack in those directions. It might seem that using two analogs at once, trying to race and do combat would be kind of like confusing, maybe overwhelming, but it's very intuitive and it works very well. Even more fun is the multiplayer where the first player can control the steering and the horse, and your second player controls the guy in the back beating the shit out of everybody. Circus Maximus was definitely an amazing game that still holds up to this day. Tons of fun in multiplayer. A really creative game that I still play to this day with some multiplayer action. Can't go wrong. So I hope you guys have enjoyed taking a look at some of my favorite oddball racing games. Definitely some fun to be had. Before we part ways, I want to share with you guys some honorable mentions. Now, these aren't really like oddball racing games, but these are some arcade racers that I definitely feel need some more love. Starting things off with the Splashdown series of games. Definitely check the original Xbox version of the original Splashdown. They were able to go back and kind of add some extra levels and use the power of the Xbox to create some Xbox exclusive water effects and waves. Definitely not seen in the PS2 version. Some great effects, and it just really adds to the overall package. Some truly impressive wave effects in this one. Kind of a more serious arcade racer. They were done by the guys that did the ATV Off-Road Fury game, so they definitely know what they're doing. A great game in Splashdown. Now with the sequel, for some reason it was only PS2, but they really took it and cranked it up to the extreme. Splashdown Rides Gone Wild. This has got more of the same gameplay, but just cranked up to like the 10th degree, man. These tracks are insane. They're all like based around some crazy shit going on in the background, some prehistoric shit going on. Overall, some huge jumps and just some overall insane tracks. Definitely breaking away of the realism from the first game. PS2 exclusive Rides Gone Wild is an amazing game with some just crazy tracks. If you like water racing games, definitely check out the Splashdown series. On the Xbox, Split Second and Pure. Now, there's a company called BlackRock that made these games, and they did such a phenomenal job at doing these arcade racers. Pure being like a four-wheeler racing game where you launch off these jumps, man, and I gotta say, it's like postcard moment. Like, you are flying up in the air, and you can kind of see the environment down below, and it's just like such a good-looking game, and you're doing these massive tricks, and you kind of build your stunt meter up and you get faster and faster, and just hitting these jumps and gaining some of this most insane air. And I was just so blown away by like flying so high up in the air and looking down and just seeing these like postcard moments, man. It just looks so good, busting out some insane tricks. A couple years later, BlackRock released Split Second, and they took all their expertise learned on Pure and applied it to a street racer using cars and city streets. And thing with this game was you were able to trigger different things in the environment as you're racing through. So you could be racing through and you see a water tower in the distance, and you come by and you're able to trigger it and kind of bring it crashing down and like hinder all your rivals and shit. And there's all different levels to this, and you're able to save up and kind of trigger more and more massive explosions and massive environmental takedowns. And it worked really well. The graphics were amazing, and some of the environment stuff was really cool to watch as you like speed through unscathed. As you look back and see all the shit crumbling down and taking out all your rivals. An amazing racing game, great sense of speed. Definitely check out Split Second. I was really blown away by Blur and its approach to combining kart racing with actual like regular arcade straight up street racing. Never really been done before, and it's just a fantastic mashup. I really wanted to see a sequel on this. I thought they were going to make one, but then it never came out. But it really does combine kart racing with actual street racing and arcade racing for a really cool package. Great stuff. All the power-ups you know from kart racers applied to a street arcade racer, and you've got Blur, a fantastic game. Driver San Francisco was really a crazy game in terms of storyline alone. I've always been a big fan of the driver games, and this game is so out there in terms of storyline. I believe in the opening sections, I think you're murdered in this game, and you are able to kind of like sight jack and kind of leave your body and go search for different cars throughout the city and kind of like sight jack into other cars. It's a crazy concept, and it makes no sense at all, but the actual driving mechanics are so solid and sound. I believe 60 frames per second. I absolutely love the driving physics of this, and I've always been a big fan of the driver games, so definitely check this out for the absurd storyline and stay for the gameplay. So once again, guys, thank you for all the support. Thank you for sticking with the channel. I love all of you. Games of War is absolutely nothing without you.